Good morning, good morning. I'm afraid 2 minutes early, trying to be prepared, but I'll just pop this into the Teams post for us. So if you're currently speaking to me, I have no idea. Oh, I'm live. There we go. An email, who's that from? Myself. Excellent. There we go. Just wait for a few people to join. Good morning. No doubt Fletcher will interrupt. Morning, morning, morning. How are we? We all okay? Are we all good? I've been super prepared this morning. Please excuse my hair. This is my natural hair. It is wild. Right then. I hope you are all good. I love how my phone is telling me that I'm live. There we go. That's nice and weird. Morning, Sam. Okay, I'm gonna first go over this. You're doing good. Good. I'm good, thank you. It's raining here, so I don't know what it's like with you guys, but in good old P Town, it is raining and gross. But I'm really good. I'm really happy. I miss you all like crazy. Okay, I've been waffling now for a full 2 minutes. Today's lesson will not be very long. Hey, Tish. Nice to see ya. Nice to see ya. Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's right thing. Today's lesson will be really quite short. I'm not going to waffle. It won't be a 26-minute like it normally is, because the majority of what you're doing today is recapping what we did on Wednesday, and then just going into the consequences in a little bit more detail. So without further ado, we'll go along my nice lines here for you. Let me move this slightly forward so you can see the board. Here we go. Right, so our story of the Hungarian Uprising starts with the death of Stalin in March 1953. He dies of a stroke or a brain hemorrhage, and because he's purged all his doctors, they don't want to treat him. 2 years later, in 1955, Khrushchev comes to power after a massive power struggle, and announces in a secret speech to the Communist Party that he is going to de-Stalinize, have this policy of de-Stalinization where he's going to relax the policies that Stalin put in place, and is going to have more of a peaceful coexistence. Alongside that, in Hungary, we've got a guy called Rakasi, who is a complete Stalin fanboy. He is purging the Hungarian people since the end of World War II. He's really unpopular. He's really brutal. And he is replaced by a guy called Naj. So Naj, much better, much more popular. And he's quite radical. He's still a communist, but he's quite radical. And he proposes a lot more freedoms. He wants freedom of press, freedom of speech, that kind of thing. But he also quite massively wants to leave the Warsaw Pact. This freaks Khrushchev out, like freaks him out. It's like, no, that cannot happen. Not at all. And on the 4th of November 1956, the Soviets invade with 6,000 tanks and 200,000 soldiers, she says. Yeah. There we go. So they invade Hungary. They are met then with some Hungarian resistance. So they use guerrilla tactics, so unconventional tactics, to try and stop the Soviets. So they use Molotov cocktails. They use they stand in front of tanks. They try everything. They steal weapons, that kind of thing. But unfortunately, the rebels are crushed. They are no match for this massive Soviet invasion, and there was a ceasefire called 6 days later on the 10th of November, but there was a lot of sporadic fighting up until the middle of 1957. And that really takes us to the story very briefly of the Hungarian uprising. I'll be really honest with you. The only way that this is going to come up is consequences or in an importance question. I know we've not looked at types of questions, but that's my plan for after half term. This was last year's year 11, their narrative account, but we're going to have a go at it anyway because it's a nice one to do. Good morning, Starlin. I hope you are well. So let's have a look at the consequences then. Oh, hello. You don't work anymore. Telephone. Hi, Harrison. So we might as well look at the first one of Naj. Now, we looked a little bit at him last lesson on Wednesday. He is arrested and executed. Okay, so he is executed. He is executed by hanging, and he's replaced by a guy called Kadar, who is seen to be much more loyal to the Soviets and is more in line with what Khrushchev wants. There is also then, if we look at the Hungarian people, let me just tilt you down ever so slightly because I've got lots of board left. And I'm going to go down here. Here we go. Oh, come on. Please excuse me crawling along my floor. This is what it's resulted to. There we go. No, Harrison, you're not late. I've just done a quick recap. That's all. So the Hungarian people, there were 20,000 rebel deaths. Okay, let me just move my mop out of the way. So 20,000 rebels lost their lives in stand up to the Soviets, and 200,000 Hungarians did flee Hungary and became refugees, trying to get away from the regime. Oh my God, here it comes. Every time. It is a big mortality rate. It's massive. In terms of the Soviets then, what was the consequences for them? Well, they also lost 7,000 troops. But I'm not saying minimizing any deaths. Please I'll make that very clear. But if you look at the fact that they took 200,000 troops into Hungary and they came out with, only 7,000 dead, that's not a very big percentage that they lost. And it shows quite an overwhelming victory, really. Also, though, for the Soviets, it allows them this very strong put down of this uprising, allows them to continue with their empire. And also, it sends out this message, this warning to the Soviet satellite states that if you go too far with de-Stalinization, if you go kind of beyond what the premier, so the leader, wanted, this is what would happen to you. You would have a firm put down, you would be put back in your place. So it was a case of the policies would only go as far as Khrushchev wanted, as far as Russia wanted, and you had to have straddle this very fine line. Oh my God! Of getting reform, but within the Soviet time frame. And the final consequence, told you this will be a short one today. There we go. Now, there was very little action from the West. The West sort of sat back and watched this all unfold. Um, with the worst two countries for this being America and Britain. The Hungarians had directly appealed to the British. They directly appealed to. Hang on, what was you saying? Would the rebels be classified as terrorists? Yes, by the media. Yeah, they would. They were publicly shamed, definitely. Basically, the puppets were walking on a rope, but it was 100 foot up. Yeah, definitely. And that was the kind of madness that they lived in. But in terms of the West, we were watching it in Britain. We were watching it in America. Oh, people were watching it in America, seeing what was going on, and they sort of went, "That's naughty, Russia. You shouldn't be doing that." Great. You can really tell that Khrushchev's going to be like, "Okay, I'll stop." Of course he ain't. He's going to be like, "Thanks, lads. I'm glad you don't approve. I'm going to carry on. But, thanks for your involvement." And Hungary were desperately trying to appeal to us to get military involvement. But the West claimed that it was too far away, that it would start a bigger war. The UN did go in and give an inquiry, but it was more like a sympathetic, "We're really sorry, Hungary. I'm sorry this happened to you, but we can't really do anything about it," sort of thing. It was very non-committal. So it did then increase tensions with the East, because the West then were very wary of what actions they would take. It was clear that they were prepared to kind of go quite far in preserving their empire, which did concern the West. And it's probably one of the reasons why they didn't get involved. But one thing the West did do as a result of the Hungarian uprising was raise $6 million in aid for the Hungarians. Great. Well done. Congrats. Now you can imagine that aid, when it goes to Hungary, goes straight back to the Soviet Union. So well done. Good job. Is that a dog coming? I think we might get a lesson without a dog. So you can see that actually there are four consequences that sort of all fall into each other. And the Hungarian uprising is significant in the Cold War, in that it does develop it and push it one step further. It really shows that the steps and the lengths that the Soviet Union are willing to take in order to preserve their satellite states, but also it shows how the West are reluctant to get involved in things. Yeah, basically, exactly that. Thanks for the money. It's going to buy my new house or some nuclear arsenal. Yeah, exactly that. And complimented and tipping the enemy, definitely. So yeah, the consequences of this are really quite interesting, in my opinion. But I'm a nerd. And how they then push on the Cold War, because Khrushchev then sees that there is no real commitment from the West to help this satellite state, and there's no real threat, I suppose, coming from the West at this point. It's like sort of testing the waters, and that then allows Khrushchev to push the Americans further, and that's what then makes the Cold War get a bit hotter. But that is it. I've done it in 15 minutes for you today. So if you can just get those questions back to me that I've done on Teams and show my homework ASAP. Over half term, I will be updating show my homework in Teams and making sure they all match up, because that's been something that's not quite happening for me at the moment. If you need anything, give me a shout. I am doing a lesson at 12, but otherwise I am around. And if you need anything over half term, my computer won't necessarily be on, but my phone will. I've got Teams and things on there. So if you want anything or need anything, don't be afraid to give me a shout. You might not just get an email quite as quickly, because I'll be sleeping, really. So what about... Oh, okay. The stealth plane, the U-2 spy plane. We come on to that in more detail in kind of the second half of our Cold War. But you will be pleased to know that we have done the first major key topics in the origins of the Cold War. And we now move into the stuff that gets really like nitty gritty. So, right then, I will leave you to it. Have a good day, whatever you're getting up to. Enjoy your half term. If there's anything you need, like I said, just give me a shout. Stay safe and stay healthy, and I'll see you soon. Bye.